Welcome to the Nintendo Switch Online Game Club, the show where we play through the games available on Nintendo's various NSO apps completely at random. I'm your host, Derrick Bittner, and in this episode, I'm joined by Brandon Miracle, who last played Kid Chameleon. How you doing, Brandon?
Better now that Kid Chameleon's in my past.
How dare! How dare! That was such a good Genesis game. I'm offended. I'm hurt.
I disagree. I've played way better Genesis games on this show. But yes.
It's a Genesis game.
It is. Very much so. We're, of course, also joined by Steve Bowling, who last time joined us for some Wario Land 3. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good. I don't have Brandon's particular bad luck, so I feel like every time I come on, I get something pretty good, and I'm excited about this one. So, yeah, doing great.
Yeah, glad to hear it. And as you're both likely aware, there are now over 200 games across the NSO. And while some are widely known like Super Mario Bros. And Zelda, there are some odd picks that could be considered hidden gems. We honestly don't know. So what we do is enter all those games into a randomizer, pick one, and then give our initial thoughts. And this week, the Wheel of Games has chosen Pokémon Stadium 2 for the Nintendo 64.
Hell yeah.
What is our experience with Pokémon Stadium 2? Brandon, let's start with you because you said something interesting as in between the recordings.
So, as a kid, I actually owned Pokemon Stadium on the N64. I loved that game. I played it. Not quite to 100% because there's that second quest you can do. I didn't do that one because it was hard enough as it was. I didn't have the GBC pack or whatever the thing is for the N64 controller, so I had to use rental Pokemon. I beat that whole game with rental Pokemon only.
Wow.
And it was brutal. But I never got Pokemon Stadium 2. In fact, I have a vivid memory of being in like a Target or maybe it was a Kmart with my dad and seeing it on the shelf as a kid. And they had all these like big percentage signs saying these games are such and such off. And he was like, you can only get a game that's 75% off. And Pokemon Stadium wasn't.
Oh.
No.
So I wasn't able to get it. So all these years later, I've never played Pokemon Stadium 2. Even when it released on NSO, I didn't really touch it. So I'm excited to give this a try.
Very nice. What about you, Steve? What's your history with Stadium 2?
So, I'm ancient compared to Brandon. So I was on the cusp of adulthood when these games came out. I played a lot more of Stadium 1 than 2, but I have played both. And I did have the little Game Boy, adapter for the N64 controller. In fact, I know exactly where mine is right now. It's next to my copy of Stadium 2. And back then, I was a horrible human, a little more so than I am now. And so I had a bunch of hacked Pokemon, and I remember discovering that if you gave a Pikachu Surf, that he actually had like a bespoke animation in Stadium 1, and I was like, oh my god! So I hacked all kinds of Pokemon into that game, and mostly they didn't work. But I spent I spent so much time playing Stadium 1, a lot less playing Stadium 2, because by the time Stadium 2 was really a thing, I had a Dreamcast, and I was playing that mostly. But so I've played very little of Stadium 2 and loads of Stadium 1. Like, I love that game. I love both of those games. And honestly, one of the things that I thought was most impressive about them in their time was that they're visually some of the most impressive N64 games to exist. Like, they actually, like, the models of the Pokemon, you could slap those into Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast and they wouldn't look out of place. Like, they're really detailed for N64.
Yeah. Especially those animations. All of those Pokemon had so many animations. They really came to life. And it was even better too with the announcer in the background announcing everything going on. Like, there were a lot of voice clips for that. It really felt like you were playing the anime when you played the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And I didn't grow up with a Nintendo 64, but I had a friend who had a ton of N64 games, but I did play Pokemon. So it was really cool to go over to his house and play this, both Stadium 1 and Stadium 2. We played a lot of this, and we try to do the challenges with our Pokemon to do it. He was better. He was better at it than I was. He had a better team than I did back in the day, so he constantly beat me. But I have actually more memories of the mini games in here than the actual game itself. And I can tell you from us doing our patron exclusive game days. Where we've played these mini games, we've done the Stadium 1 mini games, we've done the Stadium 2 mini games. It's like, holy crap, what a like massive increase in quality. It actually kind of makes you want to have a Pokemon Mario Party type thing, like a Pokemon Party full game, because these mini games are that fun.
I'm surprised to hear that because I always found the mini games in the first Pokemon Stadium to be quite good.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention I've only played either of these games in Japanese, so I'll be going into this with like a completely new set of eyes. But I played a lot of the mini games in one too, and I agree with you, Brandon. I liked all of them. I remember there was one where you're like a licky tongue and you have to get food off a plate. I obsessed over that game. Like I learned the names of a lot of Japanese food because they would shout it out as they like threw it onto the plate, and I'm like, yeah, licky tongue's eating shrimp, baby. Like I love those games. So, and I don't really have a strong recollection of the mini games from 2, so I'll be excited to go back to those and see what they're like.
Yeah, I'd recommend trying them out because there's 12 this time around, and they're just, I don't know, there's just something about them. They're just a lot of fun. I just have vivid memories. Like I kind of forgot about them, but as soon as I started up and saw them, I'm like, oh yeah, this one. It's just a ton of fun.
Nice.
Otherwise, it does have all of the a lot of the same features. There's various cups. We were taking on gym leaders and get your tournaments and all that stuff. And yeah, the fun of it was, especially back in the day before we had Pokemon looking the way it does, you got your not terrible, but basic Pokemon sprites, and you get to transfer your Pokemon and see them in full 3D and doing all these cool moves that you guys were talking about with the animations and whatnot. It felt incredible. Like you wanted to have this game just to see your Pokemon in that state. But dear God, it is hard. And I've worked with rental Pokemon before, and they are rough. For sure. The movesets they choose are like, why?
To put this into perspective, I didn't beat Pokemon Stadium as a child. I beat Pokemon Stadium as an adult on my same N64 copy that I've had since I was a kid. It took me until I was an adult. Michaela and I were dating at the time, and I think we were at my parents' house, and I was playing Pokemon Stadium. I was like, she's here. She's better at Pokemon than me. I'm going to do this today. and we finally did it. She actually fell asleep while I was battling Mewtwo, but I did beat Mewtwo.
Nice. So, obviously this takes a lot from the fact that Gold and Silver were released. So there's, it's Gen 1 and Gen 2 in this, which is of course exciting at the time. But that also applies to the Gym Leader Castle. You not only have the gym trainers and the gym leaders and the Elite Four and a rival battle, but once you beat that rival, you unlock the Kanto gym leaders again, and you can eventually fight Red. It is very much like the games. There's a ton of content here, but doing this with a rental team, I'm not sure.
Beating the Gym Leader Castle alone would be an accomplishment. I remember in Stadium 1, the most difficult content being the Coliseum, with those tournaments that you had to do.
Yep.
Yes.
That was the big hang up for me all those years. I feel like the gym leaders are the training for that specifically.
I'm actually looking at some of the cups they have on the wiki here. They have the Poke Cup, the Prime Cup, the Challenge Cup, and the Little Cup. And I remember the Little Cup because you're limited to only baby Pokemon.
I love that.
No.
So, I mean, the big wish for a lot of us when we saw Stadium 1 and Stadium 2 come to the NSO is like, give us Pokemon on the NSO so we can use our teams. That'd be cool. Didn't happen. We're out of luck.
The games will never quite be complete without that, so it's a little sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is. It's a lesser version of what it could be, but I also get it to an extent. I mean, but if you're willing to invest the hours into playing, any of the re-released original Pokemon games, there should be a path for that. It would have been nice if they patched that in, but I get why they didn't. I just wish they had.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, not too much else to say. Of course, there's just a couple features we just don't have access to, like the Game Boy Tower, where you could play. It's basically a Super Game Boy. You just play your Pokemon games
Nice.
on the TV, which is also cool because you got all the color features and whatnot. So yeah, it's honestly, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time since I've revisited the main game. It's going to be rough with just rental Pokemon, but I'm excited to talk about this one and play this one again.
Yeah, me
Hell
too.
yeah. Bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm going to go charge up my NSO N64 controller right after this.
Fortunately, this isn't one that feels like it would require too much out of the N64 controller, so thank God for that. But otherwise, any other thoughts you want to give before we go play?
I'm going to propose a challenge.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Throughout your entire playthrough, I'm going to probably just focus on Gym Leader Castle and just try and beat that. You have to have one Pokemon with you that you take the entire way.
Ooh.
I like that.
Do we decide
Okay.
now? Like go blind, not look at their moveset, and just choose the Pokemon right now out of the first 250?
Sure. You know what? Let's do that.
All right.
I
think I know which one I'm going to pick.
all right. I got mine in mind as well.
Yeah, same.
All right. I'll go first. I'll go with the full evolution of my favorite, Blastoise. I love Squirtle, so I'll go Blastoise.
Can't go wrong. I used this Pokemon through most of my playthrough of Pokemon Stadium, so I don't know if its moveset's the same. We're just gonna find out. But that's Gengar. I love Gengar.
Oh, good choice.
Interesting. I was going to go what I would perceive to be the easy route and say Charizard, but you know what? When I was a kid and I played these, there was only one Pokemon that I had to have in my party all the time, and that's Snorlax. I'm going to take a
Ooh,
Snorlax. with me.
Nice.
I like the
All
variety.
Gen 1 Pokemon.
All Gen 1 Pokemon.
Damn right.
Do I want to choose a Gen 2 Pokemon? I'm trying to think of a fun Gen 2 Pokemon to pick on that one. You know what?
Oh, I can.
Just to have Gen 2 representation in there, I'm going to go Heracross.
I love Heracross. That's a great
Heracross
Pokemon.
is good.
Yeah, I'll go Heracross. That has some pretty decent coverage, theoretically. So we'll see how that goes. All right. I like the challenge. We'll see how that all works out. But for now, we're off to go play Pokemon Stadium 2 for the next week. But of course, we'll be back talking about it soon with all of you in just a bit. So see you then.
So, you want to use your gold and silver skills in a 3D world. Well, here's a thought. Now you can get Pokemon Stadium 2, the only place you can upload your Game Boy Pokemon onto your N64 and battle with over 250 characters in 3D. You've got skills. Save them for the game. Pokemon Stadium 2, rated E for everyone.
And we're back after a week of playing Pokemon Stadium 2 for the Nintendo 64. It's a Pokemon world and we're just living in it. Brandon, how did it feel coming back to this game? Or playing this game for the first time, actually, in your case?
I mean, it kind of made me feel like a kid again, even if I didn't play it as a child. But it felt good. I have some qualms, but it felt good.
That's fair. Steve, what about you? How'd you enjoy Pokemon Stadium 2 this week?
You know, I enjoyed it less than I thought I would. I liked this game as a teen, and I played quite a bit of it. But I think that there were some things that made me reevaluate my view of this game. That I'm sure we'll get into, but didn't have the best time. It was not as fun as I remembered.
I think that's fair. I think the problem is, especially with this type of game, is that it's handicapped from the get-go, where it is meant to be played with the team that you've built up through the course of you playing one of the handheld Pokemon games, and then to see your team on the screen in this 3D, seeing all these animations, and the animations are still wonderful and all that, but using a rental team, how long the battles can take, it takes a lot out of you. This isn't just a chill game. I feel like it becomes a little maybe brain dead after a while. But I'm curious what you guys like to go a little bit further. Like, what were some of your qualms, Brandon?
Well, so I started with gym leader excuse me, gym leader Callus, Castle or Palace, whatever it's called,
Uh-huh.
the big place with the gym leader. So I started there, um, and what caught me off guard was just how slow that opening is. Like they speed it up in the second and third battles. And for those who don't know, each gym is 3 trainers. The third trainer being the gym leader. Um, when you start that first trainer battle, it's just a very long, drawn out opening sequence. You watch the Pokeball roll across the stadium floor, and I'm like, I've turned 30 years old in the time that this animation began, until it completed. So that kind of made it a little bit of a slog. Um, but in follow up battles, they do speed that up. They don't waste your time as much, which is it's a weird thing to say because like I like the flair, I like the animations. It's just it's a little too drawn out, and that coupled with the battle music, which I love in Gold and Silver, it's really not very good in Stadium 2. I don't know if you guys had similar thoughts, but I thought the arrangement, the instruments they used or whatever was not doing it for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could agree with that. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was waiting for you to start up. I wanted to
Oh,
let
okay.
you talk.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, my criticisms of Stadium 2 largely align with what Derek was saying earlier. I I don't have an investment in this team that I'm using. These are not my Pokemon, even if they are my favorite Pokemon. I did follow the challenge. I took Snorlax with me. He is unfairly OP in this game. Uh, like he takes almost no damage from most things, but it just kind of felt hollow to me. Like I'm using somebody else's Snorlax, somebody else's Espeon, somebody else's Raichu, which is another one that I always take with me. But I just like it felt like the stakes didn't exist for me in any of these battles because I didn't build up these Pokemon. If I didn't like an attack, that was just, oh well, I got a bad roll of the dice. Like these are these are attacks I wouldn't have put on this Pokemon. So I'm just having to deal with whatever hand I'm dealt. And I think that takes away a huge component of what made this game fun for me when I was younger. That and just another broad criticism. Man, the mini games suck in this game. They're for very small children.
I,
Like,
then I will tell you these games are a step up from Pokemon Stadium 1. I think they are far better than the ones in Pokemon Stadium 1 from my memories. And I tried out each one, and I think there's still a bit of cuteness and joy to them. But, it's also one of those things, it doesn't have a Mario Party mode surrounding it. It's like when playing you play a Mario Party and you only play the mini games. There's not as much to it.
yeah,
I mean, at least Stadium 2 has that mode where you can just group up with some friends. It picks a game at random, and then, at least there's a format you can play in. I played all the mini games myself as well, and I don't think they're terrible. I think there's more okay ones than there are great ones. Like if I were to pick out one that I think is really good, the woodcutting one where you play as Scyther and
that one's all right.
I forget the other Pokemon name.
Pinsir.
Pinsir, thank you. I really enjoyed that one because skill based. It can actually be quite difficult.
That took me a minute, by the way. Like playing that mini game, I was trying to get as close as I could to the band on the log and didn't realize that if you let the band pass, you just lost points. I was like, I was so close.
Yeah, that one was really fun.
I do like that.
But then there's some more basic ones like there's the one where you're as Pichu and you have the little things you have to electrocute. That doesn't feel much different than the one that's in Pokemon Stadium 1. It is better because you have to pick a direction as well as press A and B. Yeah. But I'm like, this is a mini game that took all of 10 seconds. I don't know why this is here.
It's definitely there to flesh out the package. I mean, they have the whole trivia aspect there as well. I tried out the trivia, did fine. So some of them's
Oh,
like really testing memories on
the
those.
quiz the quiz was so weird. It was so inconsistent. Like sometimes they were like, "Oh, what sound is this?" and they'd play a Game Boy sound. And then sometimes they'd be like, "Which of these Pokemon is blue?" And you've just got pictures of the Pokemon on the screen. I got 3 of those questions in one quiz.
Yeah,
I was like, "I don't know, guys. We're going to roll the dice on this one, chat. Which one of these is white? I don't know."
that's a good
Like
question there.
maybe put the names of them up instead of
It-
a picture.
It definitely feels like a game made for kids. This is a game, and that's why it appealed to us as kids. This is stuff like, yes, I want to test my Pokemon trivia knowledge. Yeah, I want to play mini games featuring these Pokemon in cute little ways. Yeah, I want to take my team in battle online, but you're not going to get any kind of high level play out of any of this.
Oh no.
It just
Like if you take a psychic Pokemon into 99% of those battles, you'll win. Like if you use the rental Espeon with Psybeam, you're gonna smoke most of the Pokemon that get thrown out at you. I did that for like 3 straight battles. I just brought out Espeon and used Psybeam on for every turn, and I won.
I had Espeon on my team as well. I, I did okay. I didn't get too far because I'll be honest, the battles take a lot out of you after a while. Like it's just so long.
They do.
And it's
They're kind of boring.
Yeah, and it's punishing too. Like I learned very quickly. It's like I need to do a save after each battle because you lose to the gym leader, for example, and you're back to the beginning and have to fight the previous trainers again, and that sucks.
Yeah, battles are so long in this game. One thing that I remember noting when I was much younger and I was playing this on original hardware was that sometimes a move would happen, and clearly the game is like probably trying to load or whatever, but you'd just be sitting there staring at your Pokemon for a minute before it would let you do anything. And this happens all the time in 2. Like I do a move, and then we'd just be waiting for the turn to reset, and I'd just be watching Espeon sit there. And then, it's like 5 seconds or so, but it adds up, like when it's every turn in the game that you have to watch this happen. The pacing of battles is really bad. It's also like you'll get that little delay before you can input another command, and then more often than not, you'll have another delay before the commands actually, like before they start showing the attacks. And it's just, you start to feel like you're not really playing, like you're just watching. And that to me takes me out of it so hard.
Yeah, I mean, without the rest of the Pokemon experience, catching Pokemon, traveling the world, and all of that, it's boiled down to just the battle, and with all that slowdown, it's not the most engaging experience, especially with just having rental Pokemon. So, like you guys said, you don't have that attachment and that strategy.
We're also very far out from the wow factor that this game brought, because
True too.
Exactly.
we're going from simple sprites to full 3D. You didn't mind the long animations because look how this Pokemon moves, interacts, does this whole thing. There's a spectacle to it. They really wanted to emphasize that. And they have 251 Pokemon in here, each with their own unique animations. Now they're reused a bit, but they also seem to have more thought into where it comes out. Like Espeon does its Psybeam. It doesn't come out of its mouth or just some generic thing. It comes out of the crystal on its head and sends it out. It's like it's more specific. Now, obviously, there are other attacks where I think it's like I had Miltank and it has Ice Punch, and it does a little like huzzah type thing, and that's the Ice Punch. I think it's still just like, yeah, that's ice. So there's generic ones, but for others, they did think about how the move came out of them.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I liked that kind of context sensitivity to a lot of the Pokemon. It just helps make them feel more alive, which clearly was the goal, and they definitely achieved that. I said this before as well, before we played, but like the announcer just calling out Pokemon attacks, and it's really cool too. Like, if you use the same move a few times in a row, like the announcer will acknowledge that. it's buried
Yep.
underground again. And
Yeah.
that brings me in a little bit more.
A glancing blow. That didn't do very much. This Pokemon's on its last legs. It's honestly, I miss that. I wish newer games had that. The announcer actually adds quite a lot to the battles.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting too because that technology has gotten much better in the intervening years since Pokemon Stadium 2 came out, and it'd be so good today. I would love that because Street Fighter 6 uses that, and I actually like it there. I think it's pretty good. Like it's fairly accurate. It's a shame that Nintendo abandoned this thing specifically. One thing I do want to kind of go back to is that I totally agree with you, Derek. That one of the things that kind of strips this game of some of its appeal in 2024 is that we have so many better representations of 3D Pokemon now. But a big piece of this back in the late 90s, early 2000s, whenever this came out, was, that we'd never seen our Pokemon like this before. So it was really cool to pop them in and just be like, oh my God, look at my Pikachu in 3D. That's so cool. It definitely loses some of that appeal now that, every Pokemon game looks way better than this.
For sure. Yeah, it's a bit of a weakness. And I do like... Feeling Dreepy in the chat mentioned something, and I didn't think about it, but it makes sense that they balanced the Pokemon by giving the more powerful Pokemon crappier moves in the pre-evolutions, earlier evolutions, I should say, the better moves. So I was looking at my team, and I chose Houndour over Houndoom because Houndour has Flamethrower, so I want that.
Yeah, and I brought Gengar into my challenge before looking at his moveset, and we all discovered together that Haunter's moveset is way better.
Oh yeah. Well, Snorlax's moveset in this was like Fire Punch, Defense Curl, Headbutt, and Curse, I think, or something like that. It was not great. It was like not a moveset that I would have chosen for my big boy at all. But
Right.
Defense Curl is probably pretty good for him since his role as a tank would sustain.
True, but
it is.
Curse also does the same thing, except that you have a speed cut. But Snorlax isn't going to win any kind of speed race anyway, so it's doubling up for no apparent reason. But you'll get a lot of damage out of a headbutt, as simple as it is. You'll take advantage of that Fire Punch.
My old strat used to be to give him I'd give him sleep so that he could restore himself. I'd give him Hyper Beam. Because with Snorlax's stats, he'd just kill almost anything with that. So I'd be like, oh, you're low on HP, sleep. When you wake up, Hyper Beam the hell out of that guy and then go back to sleep.
There's some...
before the special split.
Yeah.
There's some quirks to the battle system here as well that I noticed. And there were quirks like that in Pokemon Stadium 1 as well, such as, Psychics being strong against Ghosts, which is just not supposed to be the case.
Well, it's because the 3 ghosts they had in the original game are all poison types, so that's why they were weak to them. And then you got Mischievous, who's not exactly a great ghost type Pokemon, so that's why I had to introduce the dark type, because the ghosts just weren't cutting it.
But I also noticed, there was in one battle, I had the opponent's Pokemon poisoned, and they had 4 HP left. They knocked out my Pokemon. So that I had to select a new one, bring it back out on the field, and then it just skipped the poison damage step. It just didn't happen.
Oh,
that's weird.
That sucks.
And
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
It's not the only time something like that happened either. I had a situation where I used Hyper Beam, and you're supposed to recharge for a turn after, right?
Yeah.
The first time I used Hyper Beam in that battle, I was able to just move immediately on my next turn.
I wonder if these are quirks that we don't remember from the original Pokemon games that just carried over.
I don't know. It's just, it was all very weird.
I can't remember for the life of me, but it might be unique to the game. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. What was our teams? What were our rental Pokemons? Because we had the ones we had to use, and then we got to choose 5 others.
Yes.
I went with Heracross, Espeon, Miltank, Farfetch'd, Kingdra, and Houndour.
Nice. I used Snorlax, Cyndaquil, Espeon, because Espeon slaps. Oh gosh, who else? Raichu, Meryl.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember one more. Who was? Oh, and Venusaur.
nice.
Just because I was like, I wanted to try to get as many types as I could represented in my team.
Yeah.
Let's see. I changed teams in every gym leader battle. So
Oh,
like,
really? I just kept it the same because I didn't want to have to go through the entire
Same.
list every time. It's like, yeah, these are good enough. Register.
so I had Gengar on all of them, obviously, but like, yeah, I didn't have any consistency otherwise.
Really? That's interesting. I guess
I mean, that's the benefit to using rentals, right? If
Yeah.
you're going to have to use rentals, you may as well just swap up your team whenever you want.
This is how I played the original Pokemon Stadium because I didn't have the little Game Boy adapter because I got my game secondhand. So I've only ever experienced Pokemon Stadium with rental Pokemon. So I guess that was just par for the course for me.
Nice.
I guess so. I will say, if memory serves me correct, I think if you do bring in your own Pokemon, you kind of wipe the floor with these trainers. Like, they are no challenge whatsoever. But they could be a pain when you're using rental Pokemon. That's for sure. I definitely had some trouble. I got as far as what was his name, Chuck, the fighting gym leader, because that's about all I could take.
I stopped after the Ghost Gym, which I think is the fourth one.
Yeah, I believe you were just behind me. So yeah, we were right around the same time.
I didn't do gyms, believe it or not. I just did random battles. Like, well, one, I was working on a video throughout this week that took me way longer than it should have because I'm not Brandon. Brandon's way quicker at editing for me, if you don't know that. That should not surprise anyone, though. But I ended up just playing like that league that was like level 1 to 100, and I got through the first 8 fights, and that was enough for me. Like, I was like, oh, I was struggling by the end of it. I was just like, I'm not having fun. So I kind of just bounced around and got a taste for the other things that I could do. But yeah, it was really difficult for me to enjoy this. Like, there were moments that were definitely fun, and of course, Pokemon battling on the face of it is fun, but the way it's presented in this game made it really difficult for me to extract that same enjoyment out of it that I would frankly, in a modern Pokemon game or even in the OG Game Boy games.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing with Pokemon Stadium is that it's just kind of lightning in a bottle now. Like, because of modern advancements and the way the core Pokemon games are now, there's really no reason for it to exist.
Not especially unless you want to go back to that era and you just have nostalgia for it. I think that's really it's
Right.
a nostalgia machine at this point. There is a lingering amount of fun. I have memories with this game playing it as a kid, and I can appreciate those things. But as far as is this the ideal way of playing Pokemon? No, not at all.
No, 100%. But I will say this, and there were rumors about this a while back. If they brought like the original Game Boy games to NSO and let me play those, and then let me go and play Stadium on NSO with my save that I made on Game Boy NSO, I'd do that. It would be way more fun for me if I could do that.
Agreed. It'd be a lot of fun to be able to do it that way. But for one, we don't have the other Pokemon games on there. But I have to imagine if Nintendo or Pokemon Company ever puts those games on the NSO, that'll be one of the first things they integrate. It'll probably be, I could see it as part of a Pokemon Direct. Here's these games, and hey, it has connections with the N64 NSO.
Oh, dude. I would go back and play it in a heartbeat. I really would. I think that's it's such a key component to what it is. And frankly, the other thing I want is just for folks like Brandon who didn't get to play Pokemon Stadium with their own Pokemon. Like, there's a whole generation of people out there, who did not get to try this because that Game Boy pack reader for the N64 didn't exactly do numbers. So very few people have it. And so I would love for Nintendo to say, you know what, we're going to let people try this. I firmly believe that loads of people would hop on this. I certainly would. But I'd love for my kids or for, younger folks to be able to play that and and have that experience of like raising their Pokemon on a little 8-bit screen and then seeing them jump to life in 3D. That is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of which, like, this is still a good introductory look into Pokemon for children if they've never played it, because there is value in the rental Pokemon as a new fan, that you have access to all of these Pokemon. You can see what they do, what they're like, even if their move sets aren't exactly tuned very well. Um, it's nice to just be able to pick up and play as a fan. Maybe not for extended gameplay sessions if you're an adult, but I think there's still value there. Like, if you've never played Pokemon before, you happen to have NSO, you're 9 years old, and you're like, "What's Pokemon Stadium?" And you turn it on, and you're like, "Oh snap! Look, it's Onyx. I like that guy."
Yeah, there is a lot of. I remember that being the exciting part. It's like, oh, I didn't catch this one. I'm going to check this one out. Oh, these moves suck, but hey, that Pokemon's cool.
Yeah.
Oh goodness, but yeah. Do we have any other thoughts on Pokemon Stadium 2? It sounds like we're pretty tapped because, I mean, that's really it is literally battling of different flavors. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think that it is, like Brandon said, very much a product of its time. It's like taking second gen Pokemon and putting it into a time capsule. And if you appreciate it for the historical context it provides, it's really neat. But as a modern, gamer, somebody who has played the decades of Pokemon that have come after, it just doesn't really hold up under the weight of modern scrutiny. So yeah, play it if you want to know what things were like back then, but I don't think there's a ton of value in it beyond that.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. If you want to introduce your kids to Pokemon, let them try it, and I think they'd get more enjoyment out of it.
I think this is proof of why a lot of people have a lot of fondness for Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, because it offered the same thing while having its own unique campaign that provided 3D Pokemon in a very much different flavor, but still had a little something beyond battles, even though it was still a lot of battling. And why Pokemon Battle Revolution on the Wii failed so hard, because it went back to this style, except even more bare bones. So there's a reason Pokemon Battle Revolution was the end of this whole thing. But Stadium has its place. It is certainly an absolute product of nostalgia, but there's very little reason to go back to it, especially on NSO right now. So yeah. As far as the final verdicts, I'd probably give this an NO no.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an NO no with an asterisk saying let your kids play it.
Yeah, or if connectivity comes to the Game Boy, absolutely, and yes, though I think there's value there. Because there's fun we have. Like, all of a sudden, there's way more challenges beyond the Elite Four for your team to take on. It's cool. That's the cool part of this. Is all of a sudden now your team gets to be really tested.
Yep, obviously an NO no from me too. It's just not that fun to play when you don't have the investment of having your own team. But it would definitely, I'd change my tune in a heartbeat if they brought Pokemon to the Game Boy NSO and let us link it. That would be something that I think every Pokemon fan should try.
Yep. And what about all of you? Have you played Pokemon Stadium 2 before, or was this your first time? And before we go, where can everyone find you at? Brandon, plug your Twitter or something.
I think you can find me. There's this one YouTube channel. It's called Good Vibes Game. I'm over there with some other guys. You might know them. I'm Merrileaf _ on Twitter.
What about you, Steve? Got anything to plug other than the usual?
I just made a video about stuff. I was up till 3 a.m. working on this video. It is about Nintendo's 20-year plan. Go watch it. Daniel made the thumb. Everybody helped me put it together. It was really fun, and it's doing okay right now. So please go check it out if you haven't already. That's at youtube.com/@GVG if you've heard of it. Brand name on the shirt today. And Steve M. Bowling on Twitter if you want to see everyone tell me I'm wrong about everything I say all the time.
That's Twitter. All right. Well, thank you both for joining me. And if all of you joining us enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments, and please consider supporting us at patreon.com/gvgaming, which includes our live audience tier that will allow you to watch Game Club live as it's being recorded.
I do know this.
Oh no.
I do know this video game.
It
this came out during the
it is
Wrecking Crew.
absolutely on the U.S. I do not have any Japanese only games on here. It is absolutely on the U.S. Side of things.
Sure is.
Sure. All right. Well, there you have it. We'll see you next time as we cover Amazing Habareke for the Super Nintendo. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, Mom.